So I'm a housing rights attorney. I call myself a people's lawyer. Sometimes I say I'm an organizer that happens to have a license to practice law. I run a nonprofit called the Eviction Defense Network that is at the forefront of stopping gentrification in Los Angeles. We defend tenants in evictions, we sue bad landlords, and we are fighting very hard to make sure that no one is displaced from their home in the state of California during this crisis.
And we appreciate everything that you do, which is such an honor to have you here to answer some questions for us.
Thank you.
Um, let's see. Should people pay their rent? We're already halfway through April, but people are still stuck or wondering what the future has for the next couple of months. So what does it look like right now?
So in many jurisdictions in California, if you don't have the money for the rent, you have a defense to an eviction. And what we are recommending that people do is they put health first. So if you don't have the money for food, medical expenses, and rent, first it's food and medical expenses, then rent. The courts have given us some relief, and people are safe in their homes now, safe from eviction for now. And we think it's important that people stay healthy, be healthy, not put themselves in danger, not be stressed out, and have good, healthy food and their medical needs taken care of before paying their rent.
Excellent. And so this goes for the span of anywhere between April to to July, or as long as we have this
Yeah.
happening, correct?
I would say that it's from April rent, although this hit some people in March. So some people
It's
didn't
true.
pay their March rent, but certainly April rent and until the governor lifts the state of emergency.
So tell me a little more about the legal aspects, like what exactly is happening. I've heard words like moratorium being tossed around, things that we don't really understand. So if you can simplify that for us, what's happening on a legal basis?
So first of all, there's a lot of words being used that people don't understand. And one of them is moratorium. So a moratorium, if you look it up in the dictionary, is the prohibition against an activity. So if you do
Okay.
an eviction moratorium, you're telling landlords you are prohibited from filing evictions. But we don't have that. Landlords can file evictions. The current state, starting April 6th, however, is that a landlord can file an eviction. They can serve you that notice that precedes the eviction. They can file the eviction, but the clerk won't issue the summons. And that's thanks to our Chief Justice and our Judicial Council, a state body that governs the courts. If there's no summons, there's no jurisdiction or power over the tenant, which means the
Got
tenant
it.
doesn't have to file an answer, which means the lawsuit cannot proceed. And this order applies to all Californians, whether or not you sent a letter to your landlord on April 7th, whether or not it's about non-payment of rent or anything else. No summonses are going to be issued, and therefore lawsuits can't move forward for 90 days after the state of emergency is lifted. This is a huge relief for a lot of Californians who are living very precariously and very stressed out about
Right.
what could happen tomorrow. The one exception is if you commit a nuisance, the landlord can come in for a special order to be able to evict you. So behave yourself. Not supposed to be having loud parties. You shouldn't be violating your lease. You should be nice to your neighbors. Don't give the landlord a reason to evict you.
It's an interesting time because we have people like literally living right on top of each other, right next to each other for the first time, confined to their spaces. Unlike usual, we have people going to work, and here people are actually getting to know each other from just looking out the window.
And there is some tension between neighbors. The neighbor next door is playing music too loud all day long.
Right.
It's on your nerves. You call the police. They don't come out, and so then some tension happens. And so that's the kind of thing that could get you into a nuisance eviction. So we need
Did
to
you
be
see?
very chill with each other.
Do you see the things that are happening in cities across the world right now, where at a certain time people go outside and they clap their
Very
hands for the health
yeah,
workers, and
yeah, that's
um, Yeah, I think that's
Not
beautiful. And
living in LA. We haven't really. A couple of nights ago, I heard the noise, but by the time we figured out what it was around 8 o'clock. And then we realized, oh my God, that's what that was.
yeah,
So I need to figure out how to organize ourselves a little bit better.
yeah. Get your tamboretas, get your the guitar, and just be like, "Rrr."
Yeah. So, anyways, that order, that relief that the Judicial Council gave us, just kicks the can down the road. It kicks it down the road a long way, and it gives us a little bit of a less stressful situation. But
Okay.
ultimately, unless either the governor or local government provides you a defense to that eviction, you will lose that case. So we have defenses to evictions in a lot of jurisdictions. A jurisdiction is like a city, or in our case, unincorporated areas of the county that are not part of cities is one jurisdiction. And then Culver City is a jurisdiction, and Santa Monica is a jurisdiction, and
Right.
Los Angeles is a jurisdiction. And a lot of our local jurisdictions have passed protections. So for instance, people in the city of LA who are unable to prove that they have, who are able, I'm sorry, able to prove that the reason they did not pay their rent was COVID-19 related, will have a defense if the landlord tries to evict them. But that ends May 31st. It'll get extended, I'm sure. And then it will end probably when the crisis ends, and people will have 12 months to pay back the rent. So it's relief, but not perfect.
Here's a question. My parents are landlords, as are you, and they were concerned. Like, okay, she understands that they're not gonna that if someone's having a financial issue, that they're not going to get paid. But my parents rely on this rent, so who's going to pay my parents? Like, who are going to pay the landlord? How does that work? I'm just curious.
We're still fighting
Okay,
for relief. So there is federal relief money coming down. What
okay.
we have already done is ask for a 3-month forbearance on our mortgage.
Forbearance
If it is
mortgage.
granted, if it is granted, then we'll have 3 months to figure out what to do. In the meantime, advocates are fighting for loan forgiveness and rent forgiveness for people that were affected by the crisis. We also, there's a lot of talk about helping tenants buy their buildings if their landlord is willing to sell it, and to take some buildings off of the speculative market and put them into community control. So we've got time because we keep not doing what we need to do to stay at home, and so people keep getting infected. That's giving us time to find solutions to these problems. The courts have decided not to reopen until June 22nd, which is even longer than what the governor has issued.
Right.
Um, so we need to behave ourselves and stay at home and mask up and glove up and stay 6 feet away and wash our hands frequently. But mainly we need to stay at home.
Now, what are the interesting issues that have surfaced for you around like just homelessness or just innovation in terms of just things that are happening? I think that there's just a lot of really amazing, interesting things. I mean, for one, I think the whole idea of the government allowing this to like just make you know there's this idea that like there's all this endless money out there, or I don't know what is. I'll let you answer the question.
Well, last year we had not been dealing very well with our homeless or housing crisis. We had a housing crisis and a homeless crisis before this COVID-19 crisis started. But suddenly our government is finding money
There you go, that's what I meant.
um,
Yeah.
to address these problems. And we have to do it effectively. In
Right.
2008, during the mortgage crisis of 2008, the government came up with money. But what it did is allow Wall Street to come in and buy substantial parts of our communities. And so now a huge percentage of our single family home portfolio is in the hands of Wall Street investors and not available for purchase by young people who are starting families. We've basically taken the American dream away from young people because we let Wall Street buy up our communities. We can't let that happen in this crisis. Money is coming down. Landlords are hurting. And many of those landlords are going to put their buildings on the market. Yesterday, I started getting a rash of announcements on Facebook about buying real estate. And so what we need to make sure is that those subsidy dollars are used to help tenants buy out their landlords at a fair rate and thereby take buildings off of the speculative market so that we can bring rents to a reasonable and affordable rate. Um,
That's
and that's, I think, one of the things we could get out of this crisis.
yeah, that's
We could
great.
have
I think
better
that's a
decisions.
great.
Yeah.
I think that's one great thing. Absolutely, that gives opportunity for young people, for anybody, to be able to purchase property that hasn't been able to because of the economic dip. And some people will benefit, and some people won't. It's just the nature of things. Anything else that you find interesting around what's happening right now in your field?
A second thing is that suddenly we're finding ways to put homeless people into
Right.
spaces that would go unoccupied. And so we as housing advocates have been saying it's not that we have so much, the housing shortage is not as severe as we think it is because there's all these empty luxury units. So occupancy tax, failure to rent up taxes, penalizing landlords for charging so much money that nobody can afford their buildings is something that now is getting some play amongst our electeds. Um,
Penalties.
and so that because we shouldn't have empty buildings when there are people on the street. And the use of the hotels, which were empty because tourism is down, is also, to house homeless people temporarily is also so much better than overcrowding them into shelters or leaving them on the street. So those are both innovative thinking. The idea of putting housing into the hands of limited equity co-ops. That means no one gets rich from it. We're using a subsidy. It's not about the tenants getting rich. It's about stabilizing the housing stock. So you create a limited equity co-op. The tenant can buy into that co-op. If they want to move out, they get a fair rate of return, what they would have gotten in a savings account on their investment. And the next person that comes in is another person that is also someone below the poverty line, so that people below the poverty line get housed with money from the government. Land trusts, so community-based land trusts, giving them the opportunity to buy land
Right.
that's coming on the market instead of letting Wall Street buy it up. We need to get our communities out of Wall Street's control. We need to put it into community control, non-speculative, non-profit community control, so that we can pull ourselves out of this housing crisis. Another thing that I've noticed is I am having conversations and meetings with people who have never had a political thought in their life. Right?
Yeah.
The person who doesn't follow politics, the person who doesn't even vote, or if they vote, they don't know what the hell they're doing when they're voting, the
Yeah.
person who just really doesn't care. And tenants are being very politicized by this, and they're being politicized in part because a lot of landlords are being very draconian. Not every landlord, but we're getting many complaints, and I'm a landlord too.
Hmm.
I'm getting many complaints from tenants who are being pushed and pushed and pushed. And then the pushing comes to threats, including threats to lock them out, threats to turn off the utilities. That politicizes people. That makes people think, well, wait a minute, I'm backed up against a wall, what I'm going to do. And then suddenly you find them on a conference call, on a Zoom call with their local tenants union. And then that personal problem becomes a political thing. And instead of being a victim to that harassment, now they're an activist actor making the world a better place for tenants by strengthening the laws. So there are some particularly draconian landlord lawyers who I think are the best organizers we have, because they recommend that their clients, the landlords, do such horrible things, and then that mobilizes and politicizes people. And so a tenants rights movement that started in 2016, 2017, when this housing crisis started, is now growing by leaps and bounds with membership and organizations just zooming. And it's in large part because when you back people up against the wall, they will rise up. And when we fight, we win.
Beautiful. Well said. Anything else in terms of tenants, tenant protections? Like what are the tenant protections are there that you have not mentioned yet? Or just if you want to summarize that.
What tenants need to know is that they're not at any immediate risk of being evicted through the courts because the Judicial Council and the Chief Justice have basically put evictions on hold. If you live in LA County and in many other counties, the sheriff is not locking people out either. So even if your case was already through the court system, as long as you haven't been locked out, in those counties, the sheriff is not going to lock you out because it's inconsistent to say safe or at home, stay at home orders, and then start making more people homeless. And then in many local cities, you have extra protections. To know what those are, you need to know your city. So I want to say where you can get updated, okay? So the easiest place for you to get updated is to join the Facebook group, COVID-19 Tenants' Rights, hashtag on every fridge. And in a few minutes, you're going to ask me, why hashtag on every fridge, so I can explain that hashtag. COVID-19 tenants' rights, hashtag on every fridge. If you're not on Facebook, then send an email to info at edn.la. We will send you a packet that explains all the rights that any tenant in LA County has, whether it's a local right, a right given to you by the court, by the governor, or by the feds, plus access to you know what benefits you might have you applied for CalFresh, which is food stamps? Have you applied for disability benefits? Have you applied for unemployment benefits? Whatever other benefits you might be entitled to that you might not have thought you were entitled to before. So it's a guide, it's sort of a survival guide for LA County tenants. It'll work for other tenants because we also have linked all the local jurisdictions all over the state to it, but it is targeted at LA County tenants. So you can get that at Facebook group, COVID-19 Tenants' Rights, hashtag on every fridge, or by emailing info at edn.la. After you've read that material, you can then, if you are confused or are being harassed or got a 3-day notice or got something from the court, you can send an email to ask an attorney at edn.la. I think I responded to something like 36 Ask an Attorney emails before getting on this call this morning. It is crazy, crazy. So we are about a week behind, but no one's in danger of being locked out. Now, landlords are threatening physical lockouts, illegal lockouts. If that is what's happening, then your subject line must have your first name, last name, threat of illegal lockout, because I will make that one a priority instead of making you wait in line. And if somebody does that and it's not a threat of an illegal lockout, you're going to meet the less charming Elena, because you have a temper. And I like to tell people we are on a ship. The ship is in a storm. But we can all survive if we work together, and there is no room on this ship for selfish people who think they are more important than somebody else. Everybody equally important, everybody stressed out, but not everybody in the same place legally. And so let me take care of the real emergencies first. Also urging people to join their local tenants union or the Alliance of Californians for Community Empowerment. These are two great organizations that are doing great work to strengthen the laws at the local level and at the state level. There's also a coalition called Healthy LA, healthyla.org. They are doing great. Everything we've gotten out of the city council and out of the county board of supervisors is coming out of Healthy LA, and they are
Great.
fabulous. Very huge coalition. And then we should all be supporting the Renter Affordability Act, and that's through housingisahumanright.org, which will help us get stronger rent control when this crisis is over. Get involved.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for all this great information, these resources that you've provided. Is there anything in closing that you'd like to add, say? I think you've said a lot, but if you want to add anything else, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, so I'd like to share what my day goes like. I wake up in the morning and have this horrible feeling of doom, that thing that happens when something bad has happened. And I get a little immobilized for about 5 minutes. I'm cutting that down every day. Then I do an exercise where I count my blessings. I have an amazing husband. I have an amazing house. I have an amazing community. I have wonderful people like you in my life. And I count my blessings. And then I identify at least one thing that I'm going to get that I wouldn't have gotten but for this crisis. My house is getting super organized. My database is getting super organized. I learned how to do a Zoom meeting all by myself. I initiated this by myself.
You
So
did.
all the things that I'm getting to do because of that, and that usually perks me up, and I get up, and then I'm good for about 12 to 14 hours of meetings on policy to make the law stronger and on answering these Ask an Attorney emails. Somewhere in the middle of the day, my brain explodes. I go back to being a little angsty, and then I count my blessings again and start again. And once a day, we walk for half an hour to 45 minutes and eat healthy. Those are my
Wonderful.
suggestions. And it's great to see you. It's great to have you
Great to
back.
see you
I was
too.
very
Thank
worried
you.
about you when you were in China and all this broke out. But it's
I-
really, I can't wait to see you in real time in close
IRL.
proximity and to give you a big hug.
Absolutely. The term is IRL, which is in real life. IRL.
In real life. There you go.
Yeah, IRL. It's even the younger generation uses that the most, younger than me. If you ever hear IRL just thrown around, you'll know in real life.
In real life. There you go.
All right.
Please,
I love you.
IRL.
Thank you so
I
much for your
love you
time.
too. Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye. I think we end this right here. Okay, you have to hit stop recording. Maybe it's recording. It says, okay, so you're recording. So hit stop recording to save the recording.